Alright, howdy there fellow Shadowers. Welcome to the all-knowing comprehensive 10.1 Shadow Priest guide. I'm going to do my best to go in depth over everything, but also try to keep it simple so that if you're logging into Shadow Priest for the first time, or you're coming back after a couple month break and you're like, what the hell, how do I pronounce all these new spells? I'm going to be a resource to help you out. And we'll go step by step by starting with the talents. We're going to talk about damage rotation, how to perform well in Soul Shuffle, good comps to play, playstyle, how to use your crowd control, defensive utility positioning. We're going to try to nail all of these topics in a brief way. But if this isn't enough for you and you're looking to take your gameplay to the next level, you can schedule a one-on-one coaching session with me, and we will basically go over for an hour some videos of your own, some VODs to review, and I will take notes step by step before we meet, and then give you a comprehensive learning plan to try to improve your gameplay, and we'll go over it play by play in a Discord call. People have found that to be very helpful, so if you're interested in that, please contact me on Discord, and you can join that in the description. So now let's hop into it. Talents, and if you have already played SP, you can kind of probably gloss over this part. I'm going to break down the talents and just talk about how they interact with each other if you're a new player, and which talents are absolutely must-have talents. So starting with Devouring Plague. Now this is basically one of our main sources of damage. Everything in this new iteration of SP is focused around Devouring Plague. It's going to give you access to all of your other modifiers. It's going to spawn shadowy apparitions, which are now important with our tier set as well. So this is just your goal. Like if you're trying to figure anything out in life as a Shadow Priest, it's how do I get enough insanity to press Devouring Plague? So that's should be on a very comfortable keybind, and you're going to be pressing that button a lot. Going down into Dispersion, obviously we just need to take this in PvP. We just need to have a defensive cooldown, so taking that. Intangibility, now this one is controversial. It can be played without. You can, if you're not going to get targeted and you're playing a comp where, you know what, every game they're going to my Warlock, or you're playing a Soul Shuffle lobby and you basically know that you're not going to be the target, you can feel free to drop this talent and take some other damage elsewhere. 90% of the time, however, I'm playing Intangibility. Misery, this should be talented every time. It's a huge quality of life. It just basically applies your Shadow Word Pain in every time you VT. So it saves you a global every time you do that, and also makes Shadow Word Pain last an additional 5 seconds, which is cool. Psychic Horror. This is pretty much a lock every time. I would say 99% of the time. However, Last Word is very good if you're playing a comp that has a lot of stuns. So think about, for example, if you're playing with a sub-rogue, and maybe your healer's a Resto Druid that's also stunning, or a Resto Shaman that's using Lasso. If there's too many stuns, you'll get a lot more value out of Last Word, because you'll find that everyone is just always on DR and you don't have a good time to stun. If you're playing with a Feral, like a Rogue, consider Last Word. Can be very good. Psychic Link. This has been changed a number of times, so it is kind of nerfed in a way. More spells affect it now, but it only does 30% split damage. So your direct damage spells inflict 30% of their damage on all other targets afflicted with your VT within 40 yards. So this is going to work on Mind Games, Void Torrent, Shadow Word Death, Mindflay Insanity, Mind Blast. It's just not going to work with your Apparitions, Shadow Word Pain, or VT. So basically your dots it will not affect, but any meaningful single target damage burst is going to transfer to the other targets that are also dotted. So this is really good in Soul Shuffle. It's also really good in Dampening, and I think that you can pretty much take this talent all the time. I don't see why you wouldn't want to have it. There could be an argument if you're just focused on one target to not even play it, but I really haven't untalented this one yet. Now, Dark Ascension versus Void Form. In PvP, we love Void Form because it's going to give us access to Void Bolt, which is an instant cast, which we desperately need. This build is so heavy on casting that we need Void Bolt to generate Insanity. Going to press that off cooldown. It's one of our hardest hitting abilities, so we're going into Void Form to generate Insanity. Dark Ascension is not super practical, and it's only going to buff our spells that are non-periodic shadow damage. So what that means is like Mind Blast, Mind Games. It's not going to buff Mind Flay or Void Torrent because those are technically dots. I kind of glossed over this talent, Surge of Insanity. This just makes your filler spell, which is Mind Flay, when Mind Blast is on cooldown, we'll be pressing Mind Flay Insanity. Every time you Devouring Plague, you'll gain access to this spell. It's going to help you generate more insanity, and also put a pretty nice slow on the target as well. So this is a filler spell. We're going to take that pretty much every game as well. Thought Harvester. Mind Blast gains an additional charge. Mind Blast kind of sucks. It doesn't do a lot of damage, but we do need a Thought Harvester to get down to Unfurling Darkness, which is very useful. Unfurling Darkness, every time you VT, you will gain a buff, which will allow you to transfer your dots instantly, your Vampiric Touch and Shadow Word Pain. Like I said, from that misery, you could swap that over instantly. It actually hits really hard. I've hit like 90k Unfurling Darkness crits. Speaking of dots, we'll also talk about Shadow Crash. It's kind of annoying that we have to take 2 points in Shadow Crash now, but basically you throw this little slow moving skill shot, and when it lands, it hits for basically nothing, but then also applies your dots. Now this is awesome because it's a 20-second cooldown, and our dots last for just, I would say, a hair over or under that. If we look at our VT, it's probably around 21 seconds. Yeah, so on every 20 seconds, we should be able to dot our main kill target with Shadow Crash. We should always have dots up. Dot uptime is your #1 priority as a Shadow Priest in PvP or PvE, so let's just get that straight. So we're going to take 2 points into that. If you are a more experienced player and you don't have an issue fake casting, you don't have an issue getting dots up, I do recommend trying a build without Shadow Crash. I like to take 2 points into Phantasmal Pathogen, and that'll sometimes create more damage because, like I said, Shadow Crash doesn't really do a lot of damage. It just helps you get your dots up, and if you're free casting and your partner's getting trained, I like to drop Shadow Crash a lot. Looking into Shadowy Insight. Now, Shadow Word Pain, periodic damage, has a chance to reset the remaining cooldown on your Mind Blast and cause your next Mind Blast to be instant. Well, we already said that Mind Blast doesn't really do a lot of damage, but what Mind Blast does do is generate shadowy apparitions. I glossed over this as well, but we're going in this order because it's all going to make sense, I promise. Mind Blast, Devouring Plague, and Void Bolt conjure shadowy apparitions that float toward all afflicted targets by your Vampiric Touch for 0% shadow damage. Or 0, what? That doesn't make sense. It's going to do a lot more than 0. I don't know why it says 0, but it does a lot of damage. And one thing that's really important to know is that you really need the target dotted. Otherwise, you won't generate apparitions. I've seen people just spamming Mind Blast into a target that's not dotted. You only want to Mind Blast or Void Bolt or Devouring Plague a target that has VT, because that is going to eventually help you with your Idol of Yogg-Saron down here, our capstone. This is our best capstone, and we'll talk about that in a little bit later. Let's just go step by step here. So why do we take Shadowy Insight? Well, our tier set buffs it by a very small amount. It's nerfed in half, so increases the chance for the Mind Blast to proc by 25%, so that's really 12.5%. And then Mind Blast deals 30% increased damage and generates an additional 4 insanity. That's actually 15% increased damage and generates 4 insanity. Now, Mind Blast is one of the lowest hitting abilities in PvP. It makes no sense. It's been nerfed, I think, twice in PvP. It's like a 25% nerf in PvP, which just, it makes no sense, man. It does no damage, but the one thing that it does do is spawn shadowy apparitions, and it gives you insanity, and it gives you Yogg-Saron charges. So that's actually 3 things. It is 3 things. We're not really doing it for the meaningful single target damage. We are doing it to generate insanity and apparitions and our stacks. So keep in mind that Mind Blast is you're kind of putting in like a long investment. You're doing that and you're gonna get some damage back later. Now we'll rock down to Maddening Touch. This is very straightforward. VT deals 30% additional damage. Just take this, gives you insanity as well. Looking at Dark Evangelism. Now, this is huge. 10% extra damage on your dots. You basically will get a full stack of this every time you fully channel a Void Torrent or a Mind Flight. You should be able to get a full stack of. And then for 30 seconds, all you have to do is get 1 tick of Mind Flay to keep that stack up. So you can literally just poke someone like that and it'll maintain your stacks. It's really awesome that it buffs your dots by 10%, but Void Torrent and Mind Flay Insanity are also technically considered dots. So if you want to get a really juicy big Void Torrent, you want to make sure that you have full stacks of your Void, or if your Dark Evangelism first. Now, the more contentious, debated talents here, Void Touch. I think this is pretty much a lock because we want to get to this row over here, and we don't want to take Mind Melt. Void Touch is just going to increase your DP damage by 60% and your Insanity pool by 50. Now, the Insanity pool by 50 isn't that huge because we're going to be pretty starved on Insanity, especially if we're playing the longer Devouring Plague talent, which most Shadow Priests do. So we're going to take this, boost our Devouring Plague, which is again one of our main sources of damage. And then we'll go ahead and rock into the Distorted Reality. Increases the damage of Devouring Plague by 20% and causes it to deal its damage over 12 seconds, but increases the insanity cost by 5. So this is actually a really interesting talent, because what it's going to do is make sure that you have 3 dots up longer. And our mastery as a Shadow Priest actually is, for every dot we have on a target, we're going to deal increased damage. So we're going to have more mastery up while we have Devouring Plague up. We're also going to have a greater chance for our shadowy apparitions to deal damage to a target that has Devouring Plague active, because the debuff will be longer, and the ghosts are very slow. They'll have more time to travel and get that damage off. Phantasmal Pathogen, like I said, we really ultimately want to play this with our 4 set if you have it. If not, definitely playing Shadow Crash is a good option too. Going down the tree, we have Auspicious Spirits. Apparitions deal 15% increased damage, generate insanity, yada yada yada. It's pretty much a means to an end getting to Idol of Yogg-Saron. I will say with Tormented Spirits, your Shadow Word Pain damage has a 6% chance to generate apparitions. So this is really huge against classes that have a lot of pets, like Demo Warlocks, Hunters, DKs. If you're using Shadow Crash and you're dotting the pets, you're going to spawn more apparitions, which will help you get your Idol of Yogg-Saron. We're almost there. Void Torrent. This is your most meaningful source of single target burst damage. So our kill windows are going to revolve around Void Torrent. It feels a little clunky, but once you get comfortable with it, you're going to really love it. I mean, there's no dopamine rush like a PI precog Void Torrent for the win. It's going to generate a lot of insanity, and it'll be on a 30-second cooldown if you're taking Malediction. We're also going to hop into Idol of Cthulhu, which is essentially just used for insanity generation, but will also add a moderate amount of damage to your go on demand. Now, you spawn a little tentacle every time you Void Torrent, which is cool. There's my little tentacle. Fun fact, it can also eat traps. I noticed if I was standing on a healer and pressing Void Torrent, it would eat the trap for him. Looking at Insidious Ire, this one is huge, man. This is so huge. It feels really bad to play without, and when you do play it and someone's good at stopping you, it feels really bad to play with. But I think there's a happy medium where you can actually set up your go in such a way that it cannot be stopped. And that is the beauty of Shadow Priest right now, is that we actually do have meaningful single target kill damage, and we can set up kills by ourselves. So when you have Shadow Word Pain, Devouring Plague, and Vampiric Touch on the same target, your Mind Blast and Void Torrent deal 40% damage. Again, Mind Blast hits for basically nothing, so we don't care about the Mind Blast buff, but what we do care about is the Void Torrent buff, because that is huge. If you're adding 40% more damage to a Void Torrent that already does around 200k, that is just a lot of extra damage, and we're going to see that pay off in some examples later on. So now this also interacts with the Distorted Reality, because again, you're going to have a longer window to get that Void Torrent off when DP is active. So that covers most of the damage talents. Screams of the Void is a good alternate if you are not getting good value out of Ire. This is also a good talent. It'll add about an extra 21k damage per target that's dotted on your every time you Devouring Plague. This can be really helpful. So Devouring Plague causes your Shadow Word Pain and Vampiric Touch to deal damage 80% faster on all targets for 3 seconds. I have a little build I like to play in Solo Shuffle when I'm getting trained by melee. I will play something like this. I will lose the Void Torrent talents because it's kind of hard to get off with 2 melee on you, and I'll just spam basically Void Form with Driven to Madness and Screams of the Void, spam Devouring Plague, dot everybody up. Seems good enough to me, but for the most part you'll see me playing some combination of this spec right here, or I'm going to drop these points for Shadow Crash. So I hope that covers the talents. Let's go ahead and talk about the damage rotation and see how we can perfect our PvP Mythic Plus rotation. Okay, let's briefly talk about PvP talents. So you pretty much want to lock Phase Shift and Catharsis default. Like, you're really not going to untalent these most of the time. The only exception would be is if you're not getting attacked and you know you're not getting attacked in a certain matchup and you're queuing into the same team, just drop Catharsis, take like Scyphine or something else, maybe even a little bit of Thought Steal. But typically I'm rocking these talents. The number one reason why you play Phase Shift is just to avoid CC and damage. Avoid any spell effect for 1 second. It's very powerful. I like to use it to get fears. I like to use it to absorb a little bit of damage, give my healer a second to top me off. The third talent choice is going to be Mind Trauma. I like Mind Trauma a lot. However, if you're unable to cast and you're not getting any value out of this talent, just take it off and play Driven to Madness. Now, I did talk about previously a build where I like to just focus on all of my dot damage, and Void Form will actually increase your DPS a lot if you're able to get into Void Form off cooldown. It should bring the cooldown of Void Form down to under a minute if you're getting attacked by 2 melee, and if you're getting Void Form out in the opener and then get it out again, you know, 45-50 seconds later, you're going to notice a massive change in your DPS. Whereas if you had Mind Trauma and you're not able to fully channel it and actually keep that buff up time, that duration really high, then I would untalent it. Next patch, it's going to be a lot easier to maintain your stacks. If you Void Torrent once, you will get full stacks, which means you're going to have a lot more haste, and it's going to help make up for a lot of that haste you lose with your 4 set. And you can also play Psyfiend. I don't really like Psyfiend that much, but it seems to be very good in caster comps such as like Demo Shadowplay, where there's already a lot of pets and you might not be the target. Otherwise, if there's melee on you, Psyfiend just dies in 1 auto attack or 1 cleave hit, so you can kind of experiment with it. I do like playing Thought Steal into mages. I like playing into RMP to avoid getting sheeped. Getting your own sheeps on the healers is fun. The third talent isn't going to change the game too much, but I do think Mind Trauma is the most fun to play with when everything is going right. So we can move on to the left side of the tree now. The left side is pretty standard. I feel like you'll see most priests playing the same thing. In AWC, people are playing a little bit more of a defensive route where they're not playing deep into Shattered Perceptions. Mind Games doesn't really hit that hard, so they're going to take something along the lines of that. They might even also have Mind Control for the MC thing, but yeah, for the Life Grip reduce cooldown. These are pretty standard. I like the Flash Heal talents a lot. I haven't seen everybody run this, but they buff Flash Healing a lot this last patch for Shadow Priest, and if you're able to get a Flash Heal off when your healer's in CC and your MD is on cooldown, it can really be a difference maker. Looking at my healing last game, let's see, Flash Heal did an 80k that game, 118k. Obviously, if it crits, it can be upwards of like 170, 159 right there. There's just a lot to like about this talent, man. It feels like you're not going to Flash Heal too often, but this talent from Darkness Comes Light ensures that when you do, it is going to be a big heal and can definitely help you extend the game. Now, Sheer Terror versus Void Tendrils is an interesting one as well. A lot of melee can instantly get out of roots on a 1 minute cooldown. I think the Warrior's Blade Storm is a minute cooldown. They also, a lot of them are Gnome. I mean, it's just frustrating to root them. I found that Sheer Terror is just a lot better because we're always triple dotting, and anytime you're triple dotting and then your single target bursting someone, your Psychic Link is going to break the fear on the healer. So I feel like if you're dotting the healer, you can play Sheer Terror and it won't break, even if you like Mind Games Void Torrent someone, which is really fun. There are really great uses of Sheer or Void Tendrils. If you want to root like a healer behind the pillar, healers are going to have a lot more difficulty killing it than DPS would. So like a Shaman or a Disc Priest, even maybe like a Monk, I don't know. But in general, I feel like Sheer Terror is what I play 90% of the time. Going down, Improved MD, really good. Always want this. Look to MD your healer as frequently as possible. As a Shadow Priest, keep your team aggressive. Twins of the Sun Priestess is used to be a legendary, and basically all you do is PI your teammate, and it's going to also give you power infusion. If you need a macro to do that, check out my video on dynamic macros. Mind Control, not imperative. It's very hard to get value out of Mind Control, especially when you're getting targeted. I do like to play it on certain maps, like obviously Blade's Edge is really good. Moogle Ball is really good if you're trying to MC people down. You can make really cool plays with Mind Control, but the meta isn't really conducive to casting a long CC like that. So in general, I usually don't play it, even though I think that there is some fun outplay potential there. I don't take Teeth Evasion because, like I said, Shadow Word Death hits for like 20k. I don't even really include it in my rotation too much. We definitely want all these talents, so Throws of Pain, Twist of Fate, these two are gonna boost our damage quite a bit. And if you're not getting attacked, then you can go deep into the Mind Games tree. So hope that covers this tree as well. I don't know if I mentioned Phantasm, but basically Every time you fade will remove snares, and then you take reduced cooldown to fade, and then also fade reduces your damage reduction. So every 10 seconds you should have like a basic feint up, which means that for 50% of the game you'll take 10% less damage if you're just fading on cooldown. I love to combo fade and feather to help get fears, and if you need a macro to feather, I will link some macros in the description, but it's cast at player feather. So all right, let's move on to some actual damage in PvP, man. Alright, now that you got the talents rocked up and ready to go and you're all ready and bricked up, let's take a look at Mythic Plus DPS tips, man. Because at the end of the day, these people, whoever designed this guide, whoever wrote this, has just spent all of his life studying WoW and damage, and this is what we need in Arena. This guy probably has a WoW poster in his room. So we're going to take all of the notes right here, and then I've actually synthesized them into a beautiful notepad. So if Icy Veins wants a PvP rotation, man, I got you right here. But basically, yeah, use Shadow Crash to get your dots rolling. Devouring Plague is, again, one of our main sources of damage, so the whole goal is working our way up to that. Use spells to generate Insanity to get there. Use spells like Void Torrent to burst. Fill there with Mind Flay, yada, yada, yada. We got all that stuff right here. But still worth checking out this, and practicing your DPS if you can't get Qs in a Mythic Plus will definitely boost your Arena MMR as well. So let's take a look at the Shadow Priest damage rotation in Arena. Number one goal, keep all 3 targets dotted at all times. Shadow Crash and Unfurling Darkness will make this easier. So again, we're going to Shadow Crash off cooldown, try to get as many people clumped up in there as we can. Number 2, generate Insanity for Devouring Plague. Best done with Void Bolt, Mind Blast, Mind Flay, Insanity. Other spells like Purge also generate Insanity. Fun to know. I think Shield generates Insanity, and then even Mind Games is a good Insanity generator too. Number 3 goal is to burst with Void Torrent. Void Torrent is your most meaningful source of single target damage, and try to set up your go with a Devouring Plague on your kill target into a Void Torrent on your kill target with some CC on the healer. So that's typically a stun or a silence. We're going to go ahead and take all the proper talents for this complete rotation. Do love to have Insidious Ire, so I guess we can drop Phantasmal Pathogen for now. Then taking a look at the rest of our little situation here. The opening rotation, throw that Shadow Crash out, dot as many people as you can. It's not imperative to dot the healer, although you will see a pretty significant increase in your damage if you are able to dot the healer. Some comps you almost don't want to dot the healer. If you're playing with a rogue, you don't want the target dotted so you can get gouges. Similarly, like a shaman, sometimes hex, stuff like that. But in general, I do like to triple dot. Shadow Fiend to generate Insanity. This is just going to help you build your way towards that first Devouring Plague, as well as put out some initial kill pressure. Shadow Fiend is a 3-minute cooldown and does about 94k damage, apparently, so it's not the best talent, but it is good for generating Insanity. Once you have dots on everybody, I like to press Power Infusion and Void Eruption to gain access to Void Bolt, and then just Void Bolt off cooldown to get that Insanity rolling. Devouring Plague should be ready by the time you press your first Void Bolt. If you've dotted all 3, you put your Shadow Fiend out. You've potentially even done like, Void Form, Void Bolt, boom, you should have Devouring Plague by then. Then you're going to look to sling your big Void Torrent and CC the healer. Now this is typically paired with your teammates stunning the DPS so they can't kick you, and then you're going to CC the healer, and then maybe your healer CCs the off DPS. I don't know. But that's generally the Shadow Priest go, right? Is to Devouring Plague, Void Torrent, CC the healer. In between your go, say you don't have Void Bolts on cooldown, you're going to spam Mind Blast as long as your dots are already out, and then you're going to use Mind Flay Insanity as a filler. Alternatively, you can also Purge if you can't cast. If both Mind Blast and Void Bolt are on cooldown, you do not have enough Insanity for Devouring Plague. That is generally your cue to use Mind Flay Insanity. And I like to keep my stacks of Mind Trauma up as well. Those can be really helpful. But let's just take a look at what the basic opener is, and we'll also talk about Mind Games briefly. If you're talented deep into this tree, it's probably your second hardest hitting ability, the first maybe being Void Bolt. After that, it's probably like a Void Torrent Tick, I don't know, but let's just take a look. So we'll go ahead and dot the PvP target dummy to get everything active. We'll put a Shadow Crash down here, generate Insanity, hop into Void Form, I'll Power Infusion, use my Mind Blast proc, Mind Blast again. I should have enough Insanity now, and then here comes the biggest Void Torrent of my career. Boom, big burst. And then we're just going to spam Mind Blast and Devouring Plague. Anytime you have enough Insanity to Devouring Plague, you should just do that. Get my Mind Blast proc, use my Void Bolt, Mind Blast again. So now would be a good time to Mind Flay Insanity because everything else is inactive. spam Devouring Plague, Mind Blast, generating those apparitions, re-Shadow Crash everything. Boom. Doing a lot of damage here. Mind Blast since everything's inactive. There's a Mind Flay Insanity. I should have shot out a Mind Games at some point too. Here's a big juicy Void Torrent. And yeah, we're pumping 240k. Not too bad, right? So yeah, sign me up for Mythic Plus right now. I'm ready. I will say, Void Torrent is, yeah, your biggest source of single target burst. Did I even end up taking Insidious Ire? I hope I did though. Yeah, I just saw the buff. So let's, whoa, that scared me. Okay, let's check out maybe what the damage would look like if we're taking Phantasmal Pathogen, which I think is a good option with tier sets sometimes. And I'm curious as well if I got my Yogg-Saron off. But we can take a look at my damage in an arena, right? So here I have apparitions are very high. Facing a Demo Lock, you'll spawn a lot. I'm able to really pump into Demo Locks here. So anytime I'm against a Demo Lock, you'll see me kind of top damage. And it's not just because I'm cleaving his pets, it's because the damage I'm doing to the pets is also adding to the damage I'm doing to the Warlock. So let's dot the PvP trading dummy right here. Shoot out the Shadow Crash. Devouring Plague. Void Torrent for the burst. And we'll work to get our pet out here as well. I'm tracking my Yogg-Saron stacks. Okay, our apparitions seem to be doing a lot of damage. We're at 300k. This might be the spec. I don't know, for the AoE. Vampiric Embrace, do some healing as well, why not? Alright. So you kind of get the gist of it. This is going to be really good practice, just hitting the target dummies in between soul shovel queues. You should have about 30 to 40 minutes to do so. I've been in queue for about 10 minutes, so I want to continue to pump those meters. Yeah, everything is not going to look like that in arena though. Obviously people are going to have interrupts, people are going to try to stop you. This is just the goal that you're striving for, and there's definitely a rotational hierarchy. Like I said, if you don't have enough insanity to Devouring Plague, you should just be trying to generate insanity. If you cannot generate insanity with Mind Blast, generate it with Mind Flay Insanity. If you can't get a good window to Void Torrent, just spam Void Bolt. Like you can, there's options. You've got a variety of spells, which I think makes this spec very fun right now. So let's hop into the next portion, which would be how does this work in arena? You know, what does an opener actually look like in arena? Let's take a look at some examples I have. Whether they're perfect or not, they should be able to help you. Alright, so here's what some of the DPS will look like in a solo shuffle. Here are my talents, basic talents I talked about at the beginning. I'm going to swap over some points into Mind Games because I think that we can get off some pretty good burst. Number one goal, remember, dot all 3 targets. Ideally, dot just the 2 targets you're killing. Healer, if it's too much of a hassle if they're playing far away, it's kind of annoying. So immediately I'll Shadow Crash the Warlock and start getting some apparitions out on him. The best thing to do is to Shadow Crash the Warlock because a lot of his pets will be near him at the start of the match, and you can spawn a lot of extra apparitions by getting dots on those pets. So here we go. Healer comes out. I'm going to actually human the stun and then fear him immediately, get some pressure out. So that's a PI, triple dots now, boys, triple dots on all 3. I then Shadow Fiend for it to generate insanity. Boom. What's the next step of the elite notepad instructions? To go into void form and then immediately Void Bolt. I actually combo a Mind Games to generate insanity. So now I have triple dots. I've got my Devouring Plague up and I'm ready to sling my first Void Torrent. So here we go. Big Void Torrent nearly kills him, and I'm going to just spam Void Bolt and Mind Blast off cooldown. So I'm going to actually have to switch to the lock in a second. I killed Observer. Trying to get dots back up onto this Evoker because he got dispelled. He flew behind the map into another time zone, so I can no longer do that. I'm going to avoid Cyclone with Fade. Just kidding, I didn't do that even though I should have. But look at all my little ghosts flying out, right? Like I'm doing a lot of damage just by keeping everyone dotted, getting those pets out. I channeled a Mind Flay Insanity there, but I think actually the best thing to do would be to dot the Evoker back up because I still do not have dots on him. So we need to double dot everyone again. So throughout the game, we're going to look to refresh our dots. Do that with Shadow Crash. Missed it entirely, but I did land on some pets, so that's cool. We dotted Koala Man. I'm going to hit a Mind Games with him there into a Slingy Void Torrent on that Devouring Plague. Really single targeting the Evoker right now, but it's important to keep everyone else dotted too. spamming a lot of Mind Flay Insanities. I'm getting a lot of Mind Trauma stacks. So one thing you'll notice this match is I'm actually not Mind Blasting as much as I should be, and that's just human error. I'm getting better every day, and I strive to be the best Shadow Priest I can, and that just happens over time. So looking at keeping those dots up on this guy, we are spamming Mind Blast, Triple Fear. Again, right now, you can see the benefit of not dotting the healer because he is feared and hexed at the same time. So kind of an overlap on our CC, but if he's dotted, potentially he does break out with my Psychic Link damage, and especially when I'm slinging out the Void Torrents. I'm trapped in a little fiery wall. Attacking the healer, just hitting whatever you can, you know, never a bad idea. Spawn those apparitions. My second pet should be out soon. You can see I'm at 17 stacks, so we're just going to push in, keep everybody dotted, go for some big damage. Using Mind Games, generate some burst, generate some insanity. I do have a Void Torrent ready for this guy. It'd be really sick if I can get it off on the Evoker here. Try to Death the Sleepwalk. I get the Void Torrent as he runs away. Gonna get full value out of that ire. Dot the pet. You will cleave Demo pets a lot as well. With Psychic Link. Gonna dot the healer. Notice I'm trying to keep dots on all three. Trying to kill the Observer. DPS is looking pretty good so far. A lot of the damage is kind of pad on the pets, but again, every time you dot the pets, it's going to give you increased chance to spawn apparitions as well as generate insanity. So even though you are doing some damage to the pets, it's actually helping you deal damage to the main target as well. So here we go. Dot everybody up again. Void Torrent with Insidious Ire. Even though it's into Iron Bark, we're just going to completely blast through this. Vampiric Embrace. Just get the damage off. So that was a good 70k DPS, and as you can see, if I can hopefully click into this, yeah, here we go. I did 5.3 million to the Warlock, not too much to the pets actually, and was able to just crank out a lot of good Void Torrents. Really high value on Insidious Ire there, I would say. So I think this was a good example of keeping our dots up and also spamming those Void Torrents with our Devouring Plague up. So pretty solid example. It's not always going to look like that, of course. There's going to be matches where you're getting trained and there's melee on you, but that's kind of something you can strive for. Alright guys, since we're just playing against a caster team, here's an example of me playing versus melee, if not two of the best melee in the game. I don't know if you can count Evoker as melee, but definitely like a cleavy kind of comp. So in the beginning, I just kind of kept my distance, dotted the DK up while he sapped, switched my Unfurling over to the other dude, and with the Rogue, I'm not looking to dot the healer too much, but I'm actually going to stun the healer on the opening kidney shot, run in for the fear, and remember the rotational guide, generate insanity with Shadow Fiend. So there it is, boom. Now ideally here, we go PI Void Form and just start spamming Void Bolt, getting that first Devouring Plague out, but of course it is a melee cleave and this is about to happen. So just take a look at what happens when you get completely blasted by 3 grown men with children. Actually, I don't know if Trill has children, but whatever. So here we go, dotting everybody up again. Now this is where we kind of restart the rotation. You got to dot everybody up. I get a good window to Void Torrent here because the DK is going Rambo Johnny onto my healer. We get the Evoker's Wall, and I pop into Void Form, spam out some nice, juicy Mind Blast, hopefully. Just kidding, they're all behind the pillar. This is perhaps a game where Shadow Crash would have been useful, but it's okay, man, because I'm going to Fear into Fade and just mess up our whole go. We need to perpetually recover, perpetually get dots out. Actually, DC here, but then I'm going to come right back. Dot the DK, dot the Evoker, and we're back to gaming. So he's actually Fade dispelling my DP a lot because Sea-Doo is a tournament player and does not like to lose to Shadow Priest such as Wizkay and Prev. So he's actually figured out the SP tech. Now what I need to do in the future is make sure that every time I Devouring Plague and Void Torrent, I combo it with a Silence or a Rogue CC. So we had a Gouge into a Silence there, and we nearly killed him with that Void Torrent, right? So we get Trinket Swap out of that equation. I'm going to use anytime they're both CC to just refresh my dots because it's so hard to cast when they're on me. While they're both corroded, they actually can't kick, so I should have been casting there as well. Channel the Mind Flay Insanity as he gets out of line. Put up another Devouring Plague. Trying to get more Mind Flay Insanities. Now I know that they have Death Grip, so look at my positioning, guys. This is really important for those of you that are struggling with positioning. Now I could play aggressive on the healer, but if I don't have CC, I don't need to. So I'm actually trying to make it difficult for them to set up on me. I'm just slowly walking away so that when he does grip me, I have plenty of time to fade. So he grips me in, I'll fade the big dragon stun and basically cancel their entire go here. This is awesome because we don't have any cooldowns. We have no Trinket, no Disperse, no Trinket, no Cloak, no Trank. So yeah, I'll fade that entire go, and then I'll use my little grip shield talent to negate everything there. So I'm gonna get a precog here, start putting out some more damage. So got my dots up, looking to Devouring Plague, Silence, Void Torrent, boom. This is the wombo combo you've all been waiting for. So every time we get that pressure off, right? With that Void Torrent, that DP, we're getting just a lot of defensive cooldowns. Looks really good for our team right now, especially surviving that go. So getting another precog, it's really easy to fake people and they live in Australia. Looking at using those Unfurling Darknesses to dot the off DPS. Everyone's lining me, so here we go, triple dots on everyone, spamming Mind Blast to get Insanity. Gives me enough for a Devouring Plague, should be juicy. On the kidney shot, he's going to fade Dispel. Again, remember what I said about the Devouring Plague and the Void Torrent. I don't want a Void Torrent until I have CC on the healer, because C2 is just spam Dispelling. Even when people are running, man, get some procs off the pets, like why not? Get some Yogg Saron stacks going while there's nothing else to do. I'm starting to hit the DK a little bit more because the Evoker is just being a little weenie boy. So I try to do something cheeky here. Silence him into a Void Torrent, which means that he actually can't kick or AMS or IBF or AMZ. So we do get his AMS there. The silence was not worth it, but I really respected the idea behind it. And I'm just really proud of myself for taking risks right there. Looking at our best option is probably to ignore the DK and just kill the Evoker. We have Disperse back, luckily. We've got Druid's Trinket back. We should be chilling here. So I disperse with the Iron Bark, kind of an overlap. Looking to always refresh those dots, grip everybody away, get my distance, put my dots out. Devouring Plague on the DK, probably not the best move. We want to kill the Evoker, like I said. But I do get a nice Void Torrent channeled onto him there. And I'll instantly swap back to the Evoker, hitting the target that is in my line and still is dotted. You'll see me channeling a lot of Mind Play Insanities this game just because they're sneaking away to the pillar. In general, like we said, we want to Mind Blast to generate those stacks as well as those apparitions. I'll even Mind Games the healer as a form of like CC because he's got to dispel himself. Luckily, I mean, ordinarily he should have VT on himself so he'll dispel and then get VT feared, but for the most part, we're just looking to keep our dots up and deal some meaningful damage. So here we go, looking to dot both. Run at the healer for fear potentially soon. Big Void Torrent. Again, he spammed Dispelling. Kind of sucks for us, but we put him into that VT fear, into the clone. Need to dot Trill. Dot him up. Keeping the dots up. And by this point, just by doing what we've been doing, even with C2 being the absolute AWC dad that he is, he's spammed Dispelling. He's playing a Holy Priest, so he's just Doom. Potentially, if they had another healer, I think they could have maybe lived a little bit longer, but still, you get the point. Even when you're getting trained, you can create windows to deal damage, especially with precog, especially with Shadow Crash. Like I said, I didn't play it here, but it could be useful for newer players to play Shadow Crash almost every game. So I hope that helps as well. We'll make a whole video on doing damage while getting trained eventually. Alright, hopefully at this point in the video you have a general understanding of the playstyle and what types of spells are good to use, how to generate damage, how to generate pressure, how to, set up your burst kill attempts. So let's talk about the playstyle. In solo shuffle in particular, it is very beneficial for you to be very aggressive and play on top of the enemy healer. We kind of live and die by our CC chain. So here I'm going to run in, stun the healer into a fear, and then I'll actually silence the mage so I can get a cheeky Void Torrent on him. He's going to trinket the silence, so now I need to be very careful. I grip my healer out of the Ring of Frost, cast the Master Spell, fake it, get the precog, MD him out. Boom, we're doing everything we need to do as a Shadow Priest, baby. We're aggressive with our CC, and we're defensive when we need to be. So we'll keep talking about positioning and defensive utility because that is going to take you a long way as a Shadow Priest. And if you play like that, healer is going to add you to friends and then carry you for CR. Okay, the next topic we want to briefly cover is positioning. And this is going to be so different on every map and against different matchups, but in general, against caster comps, I like to post up from the backfield and not be too aggressive. If I play super far in the open, I'm just going to get spam polyed and cloned. They're just trying to kind of wean my DK, which is to drag him out in the open. Every time the clones are being casted on me, I'm going to try to fade if I can, and then line of sight. So right here, I'm kind of weaving in and out of the pillar. MD my teammate. You can see anytime a poly or clone comes my way, I'm able to just duck behind line. Cast clone on me, no sir. I'm going to sit back here, do my damage, get some Mind Blast off hopefully too. Big Void Torrent with the Ire buff. Mind Blast, dump those charges. Casting Cyclone, line of sight. It's on my DK anyways, but good thing that I did that just in case it was on me. Casting those Mind Blasts, getting that Insanity, dumping Devouring Plagues. My pet comes out very fast this game. If you notice, I'm doing a lot of damage. Just post it up in the backfield, man. There's no need to push in and be aggressive early in a match, especially if it's not solo shuffle. If it was solo shuffle, I'd be looking to push in and just kind of CC the healer off cooldown. So this is one way we can play against casters. Let's check out how I play against melee. All right, here's a game where we're playing against a Melee cleave, kind of. We're going to get trained by a warrior the whole game and a survival hunter, so it's basically a melee cleave. I'll show you a look at my talents. Even in the last AWC Cup, WizK dropped Void Torrent and took Idol of Nazoth, and also played short Devouring Plague. I'm not sure if that's because his opponents were dispelling DP or what the rationale was, but I think that's also a great option. You'll just generate more stacks via Yoxeron, and you'll also generate more apparitions and have more uptime on just that Devouring Plague, which is going to be really fun. I think that's what people use in PvE. I could be wrong, but either way, we're going to take a look at what it looks like to get trained. Whether or not you're playing the same spec as me, I think your rotation is going to look pretty similar. You're going to dot all three. You're going to drop a Shadow Fiend to get Insanity. You're going to Void Form, Power Infusion, spam Void Bolt, and then just rotate between Devouring Plague and your Insanity generators. So we'll look for windows to burst with Void Torrent if I have a precog. Otherwise, I'm not really going to worry about casting it too much. So here I have really good distance. I'm going to try my best to stay far from the warrior when I cast my first VT, so he can't just charge and kick me. He's going to pop a Spell Reflect, and then I'll actually Mind Flay that off into a Unfurling Darkness VT onto him. Now, every warrior and their dad is going to dismount with Spell Reflect because they know you want to dot them, so you just got to be a little bit patient, man, and shoot out that Mind Flay. I'll even give him a little Purge. I tried to cast Mind Games. I think that was the wrong move. I think ultimately the best thing I could have done would be to Shadow Crash at my feet, and then Shadow Fiend, and then look to get into Void Form. So now I got everybody dotted, perfect time to CC. He dispels the hunter, so I'll re-dot him, silence the priest off of my stun. Notice I've already used Shadow Fiend, stun, and silence, and the game just started. Now I might not have a ton of damage, and I might not be in Void Form yet, but while you're getting trained, your partner is actually going to do a bulk of the DPS. So Power Infusion him, PI, Void Form. I try to get a Mind Games out as well. Everybody is dotted right now. I'm doing my job in terms of dot up time. Need to definitely press Devouring Plague and Void Bolt off cooldown. Looks like I'm failing to do so. There's Void Bolt, there's Devouring Plague, Reflected, Unforge. Looking to actually use that Void Bolt before a Mind Blast would have been ideal. And I'm positioned in such a way where they swap off to me, right? Like I take the gateway, I get out of the fight. I don't want to be stacked up on their healer. I don't want to be in a spot where I can't just kind of run away and line of sight the hunter if I need to, even though he is survival. But you get what I mean? I'm going to kind of see the healer is right at his pillar. If I drag them around here, it's going to pull him in and be really awkward for them. So I'm just trying to use my positioning to my advantage to try to get some space and ultimately get some cast off. Might be forced into a dispersion here. They're just doing tons of damage. Hellstone, trying to avoid it. Looking to just dump this Mind Blast proc off cooldown as well. Silence the priest. If I can't get a VT out, I'm just going to throw a Shadow Word Pain on the healer as well. Help generate some pressure. Trying to fake with Mind Games. People seem to really like to kick Mind Games, VT, or Void Form. So those are good spells to fake with. No one really kicks Mind Blast, I noticed. Using Catharsis on cooldown. This talent is getting nerfed on Tuesday, so we'll see how good it is. I think it's still going to be worth playing, especially for like killing totems and stuff. Keeping everybody dotted, Devouring Plague off cooldown, baiting kicks with Mind Flay Insanity, run out of the dome, and the same thing that happened where the healer had this pillar and I went to that pillar, I'm going to try to recreate the same scenario and just pull him off the pillar so my Warlock can get the CC. Fear the Hunter and his pet. Again, trying to get some range here. I do have a stun available, so I will probably stun this warrior. I would assume I would stun the warrior here. I guess I don't. Stun the priest for CC. Silence him off. Just get the lasso, and that's GG. So I didn't do anything fancy. Like I didn't get a sick Void Torrent one-shot proc. I didn't do anything crazy. All I really did was damage. I just kept my dots up and I did what I needed to do for my teammate to win the game. I mean, I chose this game as an example because although I topped damage, it wasn't a crazy parse. It wasn't like, oh my god, I'm doing 90k DPS and here's the clickbait you've all been waiting for. This is just what you're going to have to do in Soul Shuffle. You're just going to have to get your dots out, do your CC, stun, silence, off cooldown. Don't even worry about fearing the healer if it's going to compromise your positioning and ultimately lose you the game. I let my Warlock do the fearing just because he's going to be free to cast. So I hope this was a good example of how to play versus melee. And yeah, we'll look forward to these upcoming changes. I really don't think that they're going to nerf things too much. As I was making this guide, the changes came out like the next day, so you'll hear me not talk about them previously, but real quickly, I'll just say that even if we don't play Idol of Yoxeron and we swap around some other talent points, I believe the DPS rotation will stay the same, and I hope that you can benefit from this video. If you have any questions or if you want to book a one-on-one coaching session with me to go over any of this in more depth and kind of take your gameplay to the next level, definitely join the Discord, shoot me a message, and we would be happy to set something up. And by we, I mean me in the Shadow Priest community. So Thank you very much, guys. Check out the stream. Stay tuned. Lots of content coming. Hope to see you on the next video.